We'd like to thank Grey Matter Gaming and Monument Hobbies for sponsoring this video. Astra Militarum players have been waiting impatiently for their codex to drop new ways to play the army since the start of 10th edition. Fortunately, this time around they aren't late to the party. I'm real-life pewter-rattling Campbell McLaughlin, and in this review we'll look at the new codex, its rules, its data sheets, the new detachments, and what they mean for you. We'd also like to thank Games Workshop for providing us with a review copy of the codex. We won't be covering Crusade today, but whether you're a narrative head or you'd rather read about your favorite Space Army men than watch me yap about them, head on over to Goonhammer.com for more coverage. Link in the description. The Astra Militarum, or Imperial Guard if you're old, represents the combined might of the human armies of the Imperium. Forget those weird power-armored bozos and the spindly cyber nerds fretting over skull-shaped toasters, the real heart and soul of the Imperium are the Guard. The Astra Militarum is a shooting and action-oriented army, combining relatively cheap infantry units that can move all over the table with pulverizing fire from tanks and ordnance batteries. They're an army well suited to 10th edition missions, able to hold objectives, perform actions, and pick off key threats at a distance. If big tanks are your thing, this is the army for you. This new book includes 5 detachments, with a revised version of the existing combined arms detachment, plus 4 all-new detachments, and adds data sheets for a host of new units from the Death Corps of Krieg. We think the following are 5 standout features of the new codex. Detachments. Astra Militarum done badly can feel fairly one-dimensional, but the 5 detachments on offer here, supplemented by the Grotmus present of the Bridgehead strike to give them 6 in total, provides a good mixture of themes and incentives. Tanks. Tanks get plenty of love, including a new option for fielding Rogel Dorn tank commanders. Novelty. The Guard are a venerable faction, but they get a healthy clutch of new data sheets to play with this time around, adding new Krieg weaponry and reviving a broader suite of Catachan-specific choices. Orders are back and better than ever. Orders are fun, flavorful, and one of the game's strongest army rules. We're happy to see them back in more or less the same form. And what better way to issue those orders than from the new Rogel Dorn tank commanders? Seriously, you can field 6 Rogels Dorn in a competitive list, if you really want to. I really want to. Now there's still some stuff we don't like that much. Bluntly, the interim points we've been shown for this codex are a bit too cautious, and they'd leave some of the shiny new toys DOA for competitive purposes. We hope these get revised before the codex is widely available, which GW seems pretty good at doing these days. Missing links. The new Krieg units are really cool, but they're badly missing a fold-in of the old Death Corps Marshal, and it would have been really nice to see a generic Death Rider Squadron Commander. We were hoping there would be a generic build option from Marshal Dreer's kit, but that doesn't seem to be the case. A farewell to buff arms. Some of our favorite characters have passed into legends, most notably Iron Hand Strachan and Sergeant Harker. Pour out a bottle of Wild Snake for those buff weirdos. Some less important generic data sheets are also gone, but there are obvious replacements. For example, the Acadian Heavy Weapons Squad easily replaces the generic Heavy Weapons Squad. Army Rule. Voice of Command. These rules are unchanged from the updated index rules, but we'll cover them here for newcomers to the faction. The Astra Militarum's regimented command structure helps their units operate at peak efficiency, represented by officer models issuing orders to other units. Each officer has a specified number of orders they can issue to units with specific keywords within 6 inches, though some units will have longer ranges and there are ways to boost this. These orders are issued either in your command phase or at the end of a phase after you set up a unit or get them out of a transport, meaning you won't miss out on the opportunity to give orders just because your officer wasn't on the table. Each unit can generally only be issued 1 order at a time, and you can't apply orders to battle-shocked units. Those orders also fall off units that become battle-shocked later. There are 6 orders you can issue, each with the following effects. Move, Move, Move adds 3 inches to a unit's movement. This is a super powerful option, particularly in a world where advancing units can't perform actions, as this lets your units sprint off the line to get where they need to be without giving up the ability to perform those actions. It also lets tanks line up surprising angles or push forward to contest an objective without losing their ability to shoot. Fixed Bayonets gives a unit +1 weapon skill, which is key for supporting Rough Riders and Death Riders. Take Aim gives the unit +1 ballistic skill. This is an absolute staple, and you want this active on every good shooting unit as often as possible. Note that this and Fixed Bayonets improve your characteristic so it can stack with effects that give +1 to hit. First rank fire, second rank fire gives the unit +1 attack on their rapid fire weapons. Great for sending Kasrkin and Scion damage output straight to the moon. Take Cover adds +1 to unit's save characteristic to a maximum of 3 up. Useful for protecting large infantry squads, and particularly powerful with the new Recon element detachment, which we'll get to later. Duty and Honor gives the unit +1 to its leadership and objective control characteristics. This is fantastic for flipping objectives with minimal commitment and throwing off enemy scoring plans. Voice of Command remains a strong army rule, and packing in enough orders for your key units is vital to success, especially on vehicles. Luckily, you have a few new options on that front which we'll get to in the datasheets. But first, let's talk about the detachments. As we mentioned before, there's 5 detachments in this book. We'll be covering each of these in separate detachment focus videos, which we'll be releasing over the next few days, but we'll give you the general idea of each of them here. The Combined Regiment detachment from the Index makes a return. While it still lives up to its name as a generalist detachment combining vehicles and infantry, it's a little different now. Reinforcements, Fields of Fire, and Inspired Command all return, while other stratagems have changed. You still get lethal hits against targets based on your unit type. Infantry gain it when shooting at anything but vehicles and monsters, while your squadron units gain it when shooting at enemy monsters and vehicles. The Siege Regiment represents your waves of infantry going over the top while artillery pounds enemy entrenchments. If you couldn't tell, it's the Krieg flavored one. Every battle round you can choose one type of artillery support for your army, which can range from shells that slow the enemy down, to smoke to provide cover for your advancing units, or incendiary rounds that drive unlucky foes from cover. Mechanized Assault is a transport-focused detachment that is all about pressing the foe with elite infantry jumping out of Toroxes and Chimeras. Every time you disembark from a vehicle, you'll get +1 to your wound rolls for the rest of the turn. If you remember the Ground Assault formation from 6th edition, or you like Steel Legion, you should be at home with that one. Hammer of the Emperor is your big tanks detachment, and every time one of your squadron units advances, it can automatically add 6 inches to its move. Recon Element is a detachment themed around sneaky infantry, creating a powerful way of unleashing a board control horde build. It gives your Walker and Regiment units the benefit of cover out in the open, and +1 to their saves if they already have cover. Last is the Astra Militarum Graupnus detachment, Bridgehead Strike. It's not new in the book, but it's still a perfectly safe and legal thrill. It gives you a way to run a highly Militarum Tempestus focused army. It's also pretty strong. Let's move on to the datasheets, and we'll start with the sad news. As with all 10th edition codexes, the Resin Reaper has visited the Astra Militarum range, and we bid a tearful farewell to Iron Hand Strachan, Sergeant Harker, Regimental Attachés, and Servitors. We also lost the Platoon Command Squad, Heavy Weapon Squad, and Vanilla Infantry Squad. But cheer up, they've been replaced with specific variants for Catachans, Cadians, and Krieg. Finally, the Regimental Preacher is replaced by the Ministorum Priest, but this is just a reskin providing the better weapon options that the new plastic kits have. Now let's look at the new stuff. The Death Corps of Krieg have sent in the next wave, adding a load of datasheets to the Militarum range. Death Riders are new in plastic and are a skirmishing cavalry option with a modest melee punch. Every model has a choice of swinging with a frag lance or a power saber. The hooves or claws, mutant monster feet of their horses, they have a point of AP, so they can chip through medium infantry relatively well. They have the helpful Screening Line ability, which is a 6-inch reactive move with a standard trigger that goes off if an enemy unit moves within 9 inches. One unit is nice as a utility mid-board piece, but they're not quite good enough at anything to be exciting at the printed price. They lack the durability of their Forge World incarnations. That said, Death Riders can punch a lot harder if they're being led by the new Lord Marshal Dreer, who gives them devastating wounds on the charge. 10 Death Riders with Dreer starts to look pretty spicy, as with fixed bayonets, you're looking at a healthy 8 or 9 devastating wounds pushed through on the charge, and in Recon Element, you can also bulk up their durability substantially, so there might be a place for them there. Dreer is also plausible as an independent utility piece, as he's durable, can issue 3 orders, and stands back up on a 2-up the first time he dies. Combat Engineers are a mortal wound bomb, getting both a free use of the grenade stratagem and having a remote mine that can trigger more mortal wounds once per game on a target within 12 inches. This little hate Roomba can potentially deal D3+3 mortals if the target is a vehicle. To help them get into position, they have Scout 6 inches. 2 units of these in a Torox or Chimera can make for an extreme deterrent to enemies pushing forward. Although Engineers can theoretically be led by the new Krieg Command Squad, they're probably better used as a throwaway mortal wounds bomb. Instead, you'll want to stick these command squads with a full squad of Krieg infantry to act as a sticky board control piece. The big value in these guys is that they can still take orders even after being battle shocked, and the regimental standard gives them OC2. Add in their once per game ability to issue a second order via the officer, and a big brick like this can be a great utility piece. The Krieg Heavy Weapons Squad is an interesting surprise, coming with two shockingly nasty unique options. The standout here is the Krieg Heavy Flamer, which is D6 shots, Torrent, Strength 5 AP 1, but hits for damage 2 with 18 inches of range. In addition, the unit comes with a fire coordinator who lets these heavy weapon teams shoot on death on a 3-up, making these a vicious strategic reserves threat. Bring them in, flame something brutally, overwatch to do it again, then burnate them one last time on a 3-up for more flaming when the opponent takes revenge. The twin-linked heavy stubber option is also surprisingly solid thanks to having an improved Strength 6 AP1 profile, which fills this interesting mid-weight shooting slot for the army, but it kinda pales in comparison to the viciousness of those heavy flamers. Finally, that Krieg artillery team provides a gigantic gun, even heftier than the field ordnance teams, offering a lower mobility alternative to taking basilisks or manticores. There are a few options, but the standout is pretty clearly the siege cannon, which hits at strength 12, AP 2, damage 3. The gun also has a defensive profile, more like a light vehicle than an infantry unit, so it won't just fold like a field ordnance battery will. They make an interesting option to threaten an opponent's home objective. Now for the new stuff that doesn't have quite so much deathcore flavor. Treadhead should be most excited about the Rogel Dorn Tank Commander, just in case Lehman Russ tank commanders weren't beefy enough for you. This does what it says on the tin. It's a Rogel Dorn and a tank commander. It's a Rogel Dorn who can issue 2 squadron orders out to 12 inches and swaps out the default Dorn's ablative plating ability for the Called Shots ability, giving it 1 hit, wound, and damage reroll each time it shoots. Losing ablative plating does make it slightly less good in the one big threat role, because Dorns were great at that due to being able to shrug off a railgun shot, but the new ability is a bit better when using it as part of a heavy metal parking lot. Just by existing, this lets you push up to an overwhelming armored company of 5 or 6 Dorns. Planet Rambo enjoyers got some unique options back with the Catachan Command Squad and Heavy Weapon Squad. Regular heavy weapon squads have been reskinned as Cadian ones, and the Catachan alternative gets an honestly better suite of abilities, having Scout 6 inches and built-in rerolls of 1 to hit and wound against monsters and vehicles with the Bring It Down ability. A combination of support getting into position and better reliability makes these appealing, as does being able to push them up the board in a transport, though they do get a mild downgrade in how they interact with chimeras. Each heavy weapon team, regardless of origin, now counts as 2 models for the purposes of using the firing deck, so only one can shoot out of the back of a chimera. Still, this is a surprising and fairly welcome addition, and if these Catachan heavy weapons teams stay so cheap, they might see some use. The Catachan Command Squad comes with the typical options of a medkit, standard, and special weapons, and if you attach them to a Catachan infantry squad, all of the unit's weapons gain assault. These have some plausible applications in the 2 Horde infantry detachments as good ways to get enhancements into a big unit that aims to seize the board. There are a few small changes to datasheets in this book that make it necessary to pick up if you're planning to play the army. There are too many to cover everything here in this video, but here are our picks for the 10 most important changes. Picture a 2010s YouTube style countdown here. I don't feel like animating it. Orders. Tank commanders of all shapes gain a second order along with Cadian Castellans. This opens up a ton of options for them, and it makes Leontis and Lord Marshal Dreer less of a must-take. Manticores. These long-range artillery tanks got a downgrade, with their Storm Eagle rockets dropping down in strength and losing a shot, but gaining anti-infantry 2+ to make up for it. They also lost the ability to reroll hits against larger infantry units. Instead, they now stagger the units they hit, giving them -1 through OC to a minimum of 1. Lehman Russ Demolishers and Demolisher Tank Commanders lost some effectiveness with those Demolisher cannons. They're now D6+1 shots instead of D6+3. They keep Blast and the Line Breaker ability to ignore enemies in engagement range when shooting. Meanwhile, Lehman Russ Eradicators traded out their similar ability for a defensive buff, reducing incoming damage by 1 while they have the benefit of cover. Tempestus Scion changes. The elite stormtroopers of the Astra Militarum saw some big changes, losing the ability to reroll hit rolls and instead traded them for the ability to reroll wound rolls. This interacts better with the Torox Primes' new transport support rule, as well as the Bridgehead Strike Detachment rules. They also lose Deep Strike in the Codex, but they're regaining it via the book's first official FAQ errata document. Finally, Tempestus Command Squads no longer make these battle line if you take them as your warlord. You gotta take the Bridgehead Strike Detachment for that. Torox Primes get a glow up. buddy, you can fit so many stormtroopers in this thing. These Scion trucks traded out their fire support ability for transport support, giving their disembarking passengers the ability to reroll hit rolls instead of wound rolls when they shoot at a target hit by the Torox in the prior phase. Baneblades. Look out, because these super heavies are faster than ever, going up to 12 inches of movement across all variants. For those with the firing deck ability though, those were halved across the board. So for example, the Banehammer went from firing deck 12 to firing deck 6. Ratlings. These stealthy little hobbitses now have an updated datasheet reflecting their updated kill team model kit. It matches what's already in the app for them. Kasrkin. The elite regiments of Cadia can now activate their warrior elite ability at the start of any phase to give themselves an order, not just in your command phase. This is limited to once per battle round, but adding the option to have a bit of flexibility between take cover and duty and honor when you're scrambling for board control is pretty great. Sentinels. Both varieties saw some changes. They now come in maximum unit sizes of 2 instead of 3, and Scout Sentinels lost the part of their daring recon ability that removed the penalty for firing indirect. It didn't do anything anymore anyways. Bulgrin. The most obstinate units in the Guard have had their base save improved to a 3-up, substantially improving the likelihood you'll take a slab shield or 2 to up their wound count to 4. Let's look at how they'll play. With 6 detachments to choose from and ways of getting multiple orders outside of Leontis, the Astra Militarum have a lot more flexibility now in how they can be built. Additionally, they have a lot of opportunities to break free of the boring turtle armies of old into something dynamic and fun. Your standard guardsmen are easily buffed by officers into great board control units, ranging out for objective play or for move blocking. There are great vanguard unit options like combat engineers or death riders, and they can effectively screen your opponent or act as a nuisance, with the occasional surprise Roomba full of mortal wounds. Backing all this up are the giant guns and durable hulls of your armor park, ordered to peak efficiency by tent commanders. Maybe you'll throw this out the window and go for a hard-to-dig-out horde of stealth infantry, or commit fully to the armored company bit and take as many Dorns and Russes as you can fit into a list. No matter how you build your army, officers give you a huge number of options for flexibility, letting you buff the right units at the right time to react to any situation on the table. Whether you're looking for a tricky infantry toolbox play, the comfy shoes the combined arms detachment, or the most smooth-brained Rogaldor and bowling ball list imaginable, there's room for you in the Guard. If you couldn't tell, we're pretty positive about this new codex. It doesn't contain any earth-shaking surprises, but it makes for an Astra Militarum army that plays how you both want and expect it to. The detachments offer a healthy variety of playstyles that make sense for the faction, and while some of the printed prices are a smidge high for our tastes, these things tend to change pretty often. If you're already guard-pilled and have a secret reserve of the Emperor's most humble warriors stashed away under your pillow, you're going to find a way to immediately field your collection. If you'd like to read more about this faction, including painting articles, army lists, and detachment focuses, head on over to Goonhammer.com. If you like what we do, you can also back us on Patreon for bonus content, Discord access, and more. Lastly, we'd like to thank our sponsors, Monument Hobbies and Grey Matter Gaming, for making this video possible. I've been Catachan McCreeglin, wishing you good luck on making it through your first 15 hours. Thanks for watching.